Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the Black Box Podcast. Today we're still exploring the disappearance of Joan Risch from 1961, the woman who disappeared with very little trace from her home in Lincoln, Massachusetts, October 1961, left behind a very bloody crime scene, and was apparently spotted by at least two other people at various times throughout the day, appearing disoriented along the side and down the median of a highway. However, the highway sightings have not been definitively confirmed. With this case, one of the biggest theories that has been put out is, was this the result of Joan Risch having a miscarriage? So for this one, what I really wanted to do was, I wanted to just sort of look through a bunch of other stories and collections of data and how much blood does a woman lose during a miscarriage? At the Joan Risch house, it is reported that she lost between 1 cup and 1 pint of blood. And I wanted to find out, is that consistent with what a woman should typically lose during a miscarriage? And also, there's some important things to say about disorientation. So, the short answer is, after going through quite a few different websites on women's health, that there is no precise answer about how much blood a woman will lose during a miscarriage. It also really depends on how far along she is in the pregnancy, more or less, because having a miscarriage at 5 weeks versus having a miscarriage at 10 weeks is going to give a different result. And you have one woman saying that she had her miscarriage at 6 weeks and there was barely any blood, just the same as a normal period. But then, one woman writes that she had a miscarriage at 5 weeks, and I'm reading her exact words: there was much more blood than a period. But not as much as you said. It literally filled the bathtub with blood, and it kept coming. Try to lie down on your back, it helps. So, she's talking about, I'm sure she's talking about having the water running too, but sounds like she's losing an enormous amount of blood during that miscarriage. That, again, of course, was a non-fatal amount, but she doesn't give a precise approximation or any sort of detail on how much blood she believes she lost, but she's saying a lot. And that tells me that the crime scene that Joan Risch left behind is very, very possibly the scene of a miscarriage. That could be very possible. We also have a woman saying that I passed a blood clot the size of a small apple, and I went through a pad in less than 10 minutes. I also had some mild cramping. So again, another woman passing a lot of blood from a miscarriage, and I think it's possible for the blood spatter at Joan Risch's house to represent that. And there are some other things that we need to understand, and that is that with having a miscarriage, a lot of people are writing about the disorientation. They're writing about maybe similar things to that Joan experienced. One person even says, I went blind for 10 minutes during, the miscarriage. Again, that person says they went blind for 10 minutes. Other people are describing fever, of course, nausea, and just extreme discomfort. So there is a wide range of possibilities that could have caused Joan's disorientation that would also really explain the peculiar behavior that she experienced walking on various sides of the road, walking down the median of a highway, and a lot of it's still very much up in the air, but I think that does shed some light on the situation, that the blood definitely did not come from a stabbing. There would have been much more blood from a stabbing, and she definitely was not shot. There's no evidence to support that. This either came from a superficial wound or a hemorrhage similar to that what someone would experience during a miscarriage or an abortion. Now, I have stated in a previous upload on this case that there might very well be a connection between the beer bottles that were left in Joan's house and the miscarriage or abortion theory. I'm only stating that because beer is used in a wide range of old-fashioned homespun abortion techniques. I stated a few of them in a previous upload. Just to go over them again, I talked about mixing dark beer with salt, drinking hot beer, and mixing beer with a variety of spices and boiling it, and I really don't. I would really hope that that's not the case, that this is just, even if this happened accidentally, that a woman, she just had some downtime in the afternoon and she drank a few beers and that caused a miscarriage. I mean, one of the things that people were really trying to promote is, and almost all sides of the spectrum seem to agree upon, that Joan did not believe she was pregnant. I mean, her husband didn't know, her family didn't know. It's very possible that Joan did not know she was pregnant. I mean, and what do you really say about that? And it's just like, or this is, like a intentional homespun abortion. I just today, during this podcast, really looking at the miscarriage theory, that she was just a woman who just drinking beer as a housewife, a home alone, with the exception of her baby who's up in the crib. She just decided to have a few beers, and then the unthinkable happens and she has a miscarriage. And I think the fact that we're seeing paper towels and rags on the floor and someone tried to clean up the blood is somewhat significant, that maybe her disorientation had not taken over completely. Furthermore, I think there's also something significant about why the blood is around different parts of the house. That sort of sounds like someone staggering about, and no bloody footprints, though. That has been one of the most puzzling clues in this crime. It's really a lack of a clue, rather. And I've always said that Joan was very disoriented when she left the house, yet she had the sense to take her overcoat. Not her long trench coat, but her lighter overcoat. She left behind her pocketbook and her identification, but she took her overcoat. She had the sense to do that. Can't say where that was. Maybe that was just closer to the door or something, or maybe it's something completely different. Can't really say too much about that. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing regarding disorientation. Yet, I mean, if a woman can go blind for 10 minutes while having a miscarriage, I mean, this is really going to affect the body in a wide variety of ways. And this also completely explains the disorientation, the bizarre behavior, and from this point onward, if this were a miscarriage, most people would say that she wandered by a construction site and fell into a construction pit, or had a sort of tragic fall near any part of the Massachusetts Highway 128. And then, the construction pit theory has been promoted because they're just like, she fell in there and just was not noticed, and maybe that is her final resting place even to this day. The problem is, with a case so old, very few clues are going to resurface. So, that is something very difficult that we're going to encounter. Is a lot of the tracks have gone cold, and if this were a miscarriage that turned into a horrible tragedy, I would think that Joan probably lost her life that day, that very day in October 1961. That she just came to an unfortunate end, and it sounds very, very sad, like. But when we try and do these things, we are trying to get answers, and we're trying to also get the truth as to what happened to this person. They're not just cases; they're human beings too, and we all know that. We all know that. Just reiterating. One of the biggest things, though, that I've always been promoting, though, is I can't get over the fact that the beer bottles were found in the house, and their husband did not know that they were there. Basically saying there was no beer in the fridge, there was no beer in sight when he left, and he had not been drinking beer the night before. They drank a bottle of liquor together, so Joan was a regular drinker, but he couldn't explain how the beer bottles appeared. That's why I really thought there was a connection. We also have an enormous clue when somebody says that they saw Joan come out of her car carrying something red with outstretched arms. And then again, later on in the day, she is seen walking down the side of the road, if it is her, carrying something red and holding it close to her chest, and a lot of people think she was concealing a wound, and some people have said she's probably holding the aborted fetus. I mean, I think of, like, come again? Really? But she was seen at 2 different times during the day carrying something, before the tragedy that caused her disappearance. She was carrying something red, and after, the blood is all over the walls and on the floor, and she's seen 2 hours later, roughly, clutching something against her body. Once with outstretched arms and once holding it against her chest. It's probably not an aborted fetus. I mean, my original hunch was that's just how the beer got in the house when her neighbor witnesses her coming out of the car carrying a red package, that was just maybe a 6-pack of beer or something. That's just guesswork, though. And without Joan here to ask, or without, another accomplice in this to ask, this case is really just, as I said, any theory you explore, you will hit a wall, you'll hit a roadblock. And it's very difficult now, but it's like, I would just like to ask you guys, what do you think, though? Do you think that this could just be the result of a miscarriage? We're not talking even an abortion. Do you think this just could be a miscarriage? A woman, was like even a little intoxicated. She had a miscarriage. At first she tries to clean it up, then she just becomes overly disoriented. She grabs the phone book, but she either can't connect or she's just too disoriented to punch the key. She pulls the receiver out of the wall, throws it in the wastebasket. Then she thinks, oh, I just gotta go myself, and she starts going to the car, and then she's like, no, I can't drive. I got blood everywhere, and I'm in no state to drive, and I've been drinking. They're gonna get... They'll do all kinds of things, and then she just grabs her coat and is like, oh, I'll try and walk out and flag down the neighbors, but at this point, disorientation has just overcome her, and she doesn't know what's going on anymore, and she loses all awareness of everything. Is there any possibility to that? I want to hear from you guys. Tell me everything you think. If you have a comment, please leave it below, and feel free to expand the discussion. I want to hear more. Alright, I'll talk to you soon. Have a good day.